So, my name is Siedentopf. I'm working for InFTF with Barat and Thomas and all the other colleagues. For the people who only know me online, my name online is Nixer or Nixer FM. I'm active on Twitter, now called X, or in Discord. I think I met few faces only online. It's nice to meet you now here. Today, I'm going to talk about remittance on-chain and how we can make it compliant. I mean, every one of us knows the blockchain, XHAO and XRPL, and we can send payments, but doesn't mean they're compliant with KYC, AML rules and whatnot, okay? And I will also show a little comparison between XRPL and XHAO and how we can achieve on-chain remittance on XRPL and what the difference is using XHAO network. So for a general overview, remittance means that mostly people, so not B2P, it's mostly customer to customer, sending money home to families. Like they live abroad in Europe and have family members in the Philippines, and then they want to send euro to the Philippines, and it involves currency conversion. Need to convert euro into Philippine peso in this case. There's a global market of around 800 billion US dollar every year, which is growing year over year. And usually the fees on these transactions are really high, like 6 to 8% on average. There might be some example where it's a bit cheaper, where the corridor is more liquid, but there's also examples where it's much, much more expensive than this. The average settlement time is 3 to 5 days, so it takes really long to send money to your family. If they need some money on shorthand, there's no way they can get it on time. And as I talked to Satish earlier, if it's a weekend in between, it's even longer, the settlement time. So it takes up to maybe 7 or 8 days. There are some players like Wise, before known as TransferWise. They operate in some corridors on lower fees, but that's relatively rare, and they don't offer their services in all countries in the world. Best example is Ethiopia. Ethiopia, you cannot send money there via TransferWise. I also have some personal experience with this because my wife is Filipina, so she regularly sends money back home, mostly using TransferWise. And what they actually use in this case is so-called pickup stores. So you initiate a payment here, Europe into Philippine peso. They get delivered to a pickup store, and your family member in the Philippines needs to walk to the store and pick up the money, showing their ID, and then they can get the money from the store. And usually, as we know, that's a very slow process. This is why we have partnered with the Coop Bank of Oromia. That's the cooperative bank in Ethiopia. They were founded in 2005, so relatively new bank, but therefore they are very innovative, agile, and are really open-minded to new solutions. They have a total of 750 branches in Ethiopia, so quite an extensive network, and have a customer base of 15.5 million accounts. And their total asset in ETB, so ETB is the local currency in Ethiopia, is close to 190 billion ETB.
What is the dollar value of?
So roughly, so you could say that's over $1 billion in
yeah,
which is by
1.5 billion more likely.
It's a large. Yeah, but for us it's not.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah. So the exchange rate around
130 is
135, 136 usually.
No, that's the euro. So yeah.
Yeah, 2 euros. Yeah, true. Yeah. So, what is our vision for on-chain remittance in this case? We want, of course, to improve speed and efficiency. We want to accomplish nearly instant settlement times into preferred bank accounts. One key factor, of course, is compliance. we need to apply KYC and AML rules and need to make sure that the on-chain transaction is valid in this case. The thing is, like, if you have a bank and they use a public blockchain, they will never allow non-compliant transactions going through into their bank account because it's always troublesome to resolve those transactions for them. One key point is that we also achieve the core banking integration of the bank, so we can directly settle into the bank account of the customer. So they don't need to go to pickup stores or somewhere else. Their banking backend is connected to the blockchain, and once a transaction is received on the blockchain, it can be directly deposited into the bank account of the family member or friend in the corresponding country. So this means the blockchain, in our case Xahau, is the perfect carrier of such transactions. It is super fast, it's super efficient, it's cheap, and it's very easy to integrate.
And it has the smart contract function.
And it has a smart contract. And of course, it has a decentralized exchange, so we can exchange currencies on-chain. By the way, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them anytime, okay? So, I mean, Xahau, I think everyone knows what it is. It's a layer 1 blockchain, and it's not a sidechain. Some people still think it's like the EVM sidechain connected to the XRP ledger and whatnot, but it's not. As mentioned earlier, it settles in 3 to 5 seconds, so that's perfect for very fast and cheap remittance. And it supports, as Bharat just mentioned, hooks, which is the smart contract functionality, and allows us to automate processes on an account basis, right? So the hook is installed on the account, so we can execute account logic when a transaction comes in, goes out, and before the transaction even happens or afterwards.
Daniel?
Yes?
Can I ask a question?
Yes?
I'll just hold it, you can talk.
Okay. I was wondering if you can go one sheet back. The core banking integration. Can
Yes.
you tell a little bit more about it? Because that's a legacy system, I think, or can you tell something about? I don't know if you're allowed to.
Am I allowed to?
Well,
I don't know.
I need to ask my boss.
so it's basically whatever their core banking, all core banking systems have to talk to other systems.
Yes.
So they usually expose a secure API
Yeah.
to trusted systems. So it uses that. There is no need for Xahau to know the inner workings of that core banking.
So
You don't have to do different custom solutions for each one. It's up to them, whatever they want to publish.
So we basically build a middle backend, which is between the actual core banking of the bank and the Xahau network, right? In the middle, which then translates Xahau transaction into deposit transactions for the core banking.
So it's 24/7, 7 days a week.
Yes.
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 Unlike some other solutions which say 24/7, but they're actually 24/7, 5 days a week, except weekends. Yes. So this is actually 24/7.
If the FTP server is working.
Exactly.
Good point. Yeah.
People aren't asleep.
Fax machine is paper.
So we gave the architecture to use with Cope some thought process, and I think we came out with a quite good solution. So we have an issuer wallet, of course, for the Cope bank. So they are going to issue their own ETB, which is backed by their bank account deposited in their core banking. So they're gonna issue digital ETB on Xahau network, and that means the issuer wallet for ETB is a central trust anchor for customers. So they can be sure if they interact with the issuer wallet for Cope, then because it's a bank, it's a higher trust factor for customers. The operational wallet It's a second wallet which is created on Xahau, uses authorized trust lines with the issuer wallet. So the issuer wallet is going to authorize the operational wallet to hold its ETB, and the operational wallet is the only wallet on the whole blockchain to hold the issued ETB by the bank. So the bank doesn't want anyone, like users like you or from somewhere else, to hold their own currency. Right? That's very important in this case, because if they spread out their currency, for now, it always comes with issues like people want to redeem it and whatnot. So they don't have any issues with redemption when they only handle their currency themselves. The operational wallet manages the DEX offers. So the operational wallet will create an offer on the Xahau decentralized exchange. As example, Euro to ETB. And
Excuse me.
And this DEX offer is then there to help facilitate, in a payment scenario, the exchange between the two currencies. You have a question? No? Okay.
Who would issue
Yeah.
the other currencies, like the euro, for example?
Yes, so we are working with stablecoin issuers,
Okay.
like as example GateHub.
Yeah.
So of course the operational wallet in this case also has the Euro trust line to GateHub. So it can receive Euro, and then the ETB will leave the the operational wallet and will be transferred to the issuer wallet in this case. But we are open to more issuers, stablecoin issuers.
There will be more issuers and more currencies, of course, right? As it expands.
Yeah. We'll build cat cotton onto the good deal.
Yeah. And since the operational wallet is the only wallet which can hold ETB issued by the bank, they are also, so the bank is in control of the exchange rate, which is very important for the bank. Of course, it needs to be a competitive exchange rate. It cannot be 20% higher than on free market, then no one will use the service. But they are the only ones determining the exchange rate in this case. No one else can do because no one else holds ETB, right?
However, another bank could. You know, if it is like a competitive forex market, it would happen. So one of the objectives, sorry Daniel, one of the objectives which is not technical is that inflow of foreign exchange into a country is very important, right? Inflow of the so-called hard currencies is very important. So they want to be competitive to enthuse people to use these things to send in small amounts of dollars and euros and all of that, so that the country gets foreign exchange. So they will be competitive.
Yeah, good point. And we enforce some compliance logic via hooks on-chain. We use destination tags for account mapping, so we know which customer to credit the incoming ETB. And we have also automated validation checks in the backend, which is then handled off-chain. So off-chain is like AML and KYC checks, which then gets also validated by hook on-chain. I will come back to that later, how this exactly works. So the general remittance flow for the Coop looks like this. Coop has built an XApp, so we are using the Xaman wallet right now. So they have built an XApp, and the customer tops up their Xao account with Euro, GetUp Euro, and initiates a transaction via their application. It's a very easy to use app. You only need the account number and the account owner of the recipient. That's usually something everyone doing remittance knows. So you always need like the receiver name and the receiver account number. So there's nothing new for people to remember. They don't need to remember destination tags, nothing. It's all handled automatically. The on-ramp can happen via SEPA transaction or credit card or PayPal. So there are plenty of options to on-ramp. And the user initiates the transactions by entering details, name, account number, and the amount to send. Yeah? This information is then sent to the backend run by Coop. they are going to validate the request. Is it a known customer of us? Is the account number correct? Is the sender KYC'd? So this is also a requirement. Does the sender account have enough balance? And whatever checks are needed in this case. If this is the case, if everything checks out, they sign a message, it's called a payload, and puts it into the transaction JSON. I will come to that later. It's very interesting what we are doing there. But the next step is we submit a transaction to the blockchain. The transaction is processed, and the information we put into the hook or photo hook is checked by the hook itself and validated. That's down here. And if everything goes well, the transaction goes through, the issuer account receives the ETB, then there is, of course, the code backend, which then registers the incoming transaction and credits the user directly into the bank account of the user. So we had a good example, Barav, like we were talking to our colleagues in Ethiopia, like if you have lunch and you're like, oh, I don't have enough money to pay my lunch right now. Okay, let me send a message to my family member. In, I don't know, 10 seconds, there can be enough money in your bank account just to pay for the lunch, right?
And the recipient has no knowledge of the blockchain.
Yeah.
Zero. Right? So that's what it's invisible to the recipient, right? There's a person sending money home to his or her mother or father. It's normal that they don't know anything about the network.
Yeah. Wait, I'm too fast, sorry. I forgot something, so.
But the sender does know that about blockchain because they've got an XR.
Right
Yeah.
now, yes, of course.
They need to top up, exactly, yeah. The sender knows.
About blockchain.
Yeah,
Right now.
exactly.
But maybe not.
For now, for now.
I actually I just texted you about this as well. We can actually isolate X apps into their own separate apps that could be published to the stores, where account generation and signing is abstracted away.
Mm-hmm.
You can consider it, especially on Zaha, right? Because the reserves are that low, and because we can sponsor it, you can basically have potentially throwaway accounts.
Yeah.
Allow people to install an app, and just the home screen is basically an X app.
Yeah. I think the ultimate goal is to remove the visibility of the blockchain on both ends, sender and receiver. That would be a perfect scenario in this case.
Yeah, so as things get traction, right? As Zaha is seen as, because of the various features and the speed of settlement, it starts becoming a rail, right? When it becomes a rail, then it's invisible, right? I mean, the physical world, you don't see the rail your train is traveling on. So that would be the thing. But there will always be a section, increasing section of people who would use their own non-custodial wallets to want to send. Right?
Both are possible.
Yes, both are possible. So.
Yeah.
Do the bank account customers have an hour address?
No,
No,
they know nothing about
there
it.
is no.
Nothing.
Just a quick one. Thank you.
So before I go to the next slide, I would like to ask you, what do you think, which features the XRPL offers or Xahau do we need to achieve on-chain compliance of such transactions? And we exclude hooks in this case for now.
I won't answer.
Any idea?
Well,
Somebody take.
DEX, you said.
DEX, yes, we need a decentralized exchange. What else?
Payment transactions.
Sorry?
Just payment transactions.
Payment transactions, yeah, with destination tags to map the customer.
Destination tags.
On ramps, he said.
On-ramps, yeah. How do we avoid people sending us any amount in XRP or XA? Yes, exactly. Deposit pre-authorization on the operational wallet and on the issuer. So no one, because the bank doesn't want to receive any XA or any XRP, because it's always compliance, like what to do with the payment, right? So we need destination tags, authorized trust lines to the operational wallet, deposit pre-authorization. So we need to authorize accounts which are allowed to send us money.
Can I ask something here? Are the destination tags the same every time, or are they?
We can rotate.
Yeah. So they.
Yeah, we can rotate destination tags. So the key features we use on the XRPL, as mentioned, is authorized trust lines, so we can control who's gonna hold ETB. Yeah.
Oh.
Just wait. So we need deposit pre-authorization to control the accounts. They must be KYC'd to send us money. Otherwise, anyone on the whole blockchain can send us money, and then what to do with it. We need destination tags to map the incoming transactions to actual bank customers. And we need the built-in DEX for the currency conversion, as you mentioned correctly. But there are some problems with the setup, because you need to authorize every single account. So if you have a new customer, you need to send a new transaction to authorize a new account. What if the customer changes the account? Okay, you need to add a new account. What to do with the old account? Remove it from the list? Keep it? Does he use it again? And the issue with this is it's very cost inefficient, because every account increases the owner's reserve. So if you have 10,000 accounts, 10,000 users, you have 2,000 XRP locked into your issuer wallet, right? Tag errors. How common is it for people to enter wrong tags? They can just enter, even if they are authorized, they just enter, I don't know, any tag, right? They can just send you a transaction, tag 0, because they think it's not needed, and then what to do with the payment? Bounce it? So it's really important that we get rid of this tag error issue here. In the future, when we are talking about custodial wallets, also able to do remittance transactions, it can lead to loss of funds. What if a user from a custodial wallet, like an exchange maybe, or another bank, sending you with a wrong tag? So who to credit? You don't have the source tag in the worst case, right? What to do with the money? Then you need to resolve the issue with the other bank, who was the sender, and then you need to, it's a long process. And there is no on-chain enforcement of rules on the XRPL here in this case. Oh, and by the way, we need bouncing payments. If a custodial wallet sends you any unauthorized amount in XRP, XR, or whatever, we always need to bounce the payment back, right? Because we cannot receive amount that we cannot credit to a user in the bank. So that's why we need hooks and XAHAO, because we can achieve on-chain compliance directly on the blockchain. The hook is going to verify a signature. I will show you in the next step how we create this. We don't need any deposit pre-authorization, so we don't need to increase our owner reserve. We eliminate bouncing payments completely, and all transactions are routed through a backend, in this case a co-backend, to be pre-approved. Okay? So how does this work? So we developed a hook with Satish's help. He was very kind to support us in this case. First, we have data collection. So the backend, the co-backend, receives the sender account, the amount, recipient name from the user interface from the X app. It then maps the destination tag to the sender account, so we don't use public, to the sender account and name. So we don't use public information from people on the public, private information from people on the public blockchain. And the backend creates a payload. So it uses the sender account, the destination tag, and the sending amount to create a payload. And this payload is signed with a private key. Okay? This payload is then set into the transaction JSON of the payment transaction, including the signature, as hook parameter. So you can introduce hook parameters on XAHAO for each transaction. You can set different properties, and two of the properties we use is like a signature and a payload. In this way, later on the hook can validate this data. So we create a signature, and in the end, the transaction is sent back to the customer in the X app, and he signs it with a Xamarin wallet, and then it gets submitted to the blockchain, to Xahau network.
So the private key that uses to sign it is the one corresponding to his...
Yes,
his
so when we install the hook on the issuer account, we give it the public key of the private key the backend knows, right? So on an incoming transaction on the issuer wallet, the hook reads these parameters I was just talking about, the signature and the payload. It validates the signature, and then it takes apart the payload. So the sender account, amount, and destination tag, and compares it to the actual transaction JSON, if it's the same. If all data matches, so from the payload, the account R address matches the JSON transaction R address, and all the data matches, only then the transaction is approved. This way we can do off-chain compliance in the backend, sign a message, and the hook can verify that the data is correct, and only data which is correct is processed by the hook, and the payment goes through. If anything is wrong, there is no signature, there is no hook parameter, the transaction is completely rejected on the issue account. Markus?
Couldn't you do this also with multisig? So that you just say, okay, here is the address of the bank, and please sign this transaction if it fulfills my parameters. Why do I need a hook on-chain for that?
Realistically, it's a challenge for a bank to be able to verify all of the incoming transactions.
I mean, they have to do that already.
They've already got like...
No, but the thing is that anyone can send you a payment, right? And we want to avoid that. So multi-sign in this case doesn't help, right? So anyone can send a payment to the issuer.
You're saying like with the bank as one of the signers, right?
Yeah.
Instead of signing like an offline or an off-chain payload, why not have the bank sign as a multi-signing partner on chain? I mean, logistically, multi-signing is difficult.
No, the problem is apparently that you're not able to say, I don't want anything that's not multi-signed with this key.
But then you need to...
That's a good point.
Yeah, but then you need to install multi-signing on the user account and allow the bank R address to sign transactions on behalf of the
to co-sign,
user account.
That's what you're also doing.
No.
if the payload is not signed, the transaction will not go through, right?
It includes a signature in a hook parameter on the transaction.
Yeah.
So in this case, one of the powerful features is that you can do cross-border settlement from a non-custodial wallet to a bank account. The bank doesn't have to know about the sending account at all, except in the few transactions where where they're receiving payments.
You don't even have to set up multi-sign. You can just take a transaction, multi-sign it anyway. The problem is that then still garbage can be sent to the account. That's basically the most important feature here is the garbage filter.
Yeah. Also about destination tags, like multi-sign doesn't prevent destination tag errors, as example.
Well, you would only sign if it fulfills those criteria.
Okay, I see. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Any more questions so far? So with this approach, we achieve compliance by design. The payload is generated in the backend and signed with the information of the sender, amount, and destination tag. We have on-chain verification by the hook, which then rejects transactions which don't comply to the rules set by the hook. This allows us to filter transactions, invalid transactions, and automatically reject transactions on the blockchain level. And we have a kind of secure execution that only pre-approved transactions can reach the issuer account. So to summarize this, XRPL versus Xahau with hooks, the deposit pre-auth feature is required on the XRPL to achieve on-chain compliance, but is not needed for Xahau, also reducing owner reserve costs on the issuer account. Tag validation is mostly a manual process when there's issues with the tag, it needs to be resolved manually. We have here on-chain tag validation via the hook. The compliance is off-chain only, so only after the fact, after a transaction is executed, you can do compliance checks. And we have here, in our case, the compliance is embedded in the hook, and additionally, we have also off-chain validation. The sender control, so who can send ETB to our issuer wallet, is a static list on the XRPL, and it's a dynamic logic on Xahao. So if the user changes the wallet, it's not a problem for us. It's easy to handle. And refund handling, this is the bouncing payment, is a manual process on the XRPL, and is basically not needed on Xahao with hooks, because we don't receive any unknown or illegitimate transaction on the issuer account. So the whole COP user experience from a user, from a user, is very simple. It's a very simple user interface. I'm not sure if I have time to show it to you. It's really clean design. It only has like three fields: account name, account number, and the amount to send. We have like an intelligent backend implemented with COP, which is integrated into the blockchain and connected to their banking backend. And we have achieved on-chain compliance with hooks on Xahao. So what are now the benefits for Ephopia and COP? It definitely is a cost reduction in this case. More people will be able to send money home, and we can also send very small amounts. Usually the fees, sometimes it's a fixed fee of, I don't know, €5. So if you want to send €10 and you pay €5 fee, you're not going to do it, right? So in our case, what are the transaction costs for Xahao? I don't know, 0.0001 cents, something like this. With a hook, maybe 0.001 cents, but it's still super cheap compared to traditional ways for remittance. We have instant settlement into the bank account of the customer instead of days. It's all traceable on the chain by the customer, and the customer also receives feedback once the transaction is settled into the actual bank account. So in the app, the customer can see, okay, it was actually received directly into the bank account or not. And it's easier for the diaspora to support the families at home, because now it's very cheap and more inclusive than before.
Can I make an observation here? Take a guess how much it takes to send from Estonia to Ethiopia from your bank. Take a guess on what the fee is.
Percentage?
No, no, it's not a percentage. There is always it's a flat fee. Normally banks are doing standard.
Every time.
Yeah, there's a static fee. Take a guess.
50 euros?
100.
100 euros, said anything, even to €1.
Yes.
Because you're 100
So-
euro.
Yeah.
So the issue is, how does a person who wants to make a small payment ever able to do it legally? Right? So it's a vicious cycle of saying that these fees are high because of anti-AML things, but there's high money laundering because of the fees. And then it's self-fulfilling prophecy, right? So this is one of the issues. Because of these, there are informal remittance methods, right? By which it affects both sending as well as receiving countries. In one case, there is an illegitimate, an unaccounted for physical cash leaving, say, the European Union, right? It supplants the physical cash economy of the other country, because now the euro or the dollar now is becoming more valuable in local transactions than the local currency.
And then devaluing the other side.
Devaluing it further,
Yeah.
right? And the government of the receiving country is now losing foreign exchange. Their debt is denominated in certain currencies. They don't have it. So it's a win for both ends of the transaction, finally.
Can they send back? Can the Ethiopian send back to the?
Not yet,
No.
not yet, because the focus is on inward remittances, right? And finally, if there are enough countries or enough currencies, somebody's inward becomes another person's outward,
Yeah.
right? So that is what would happen.
Are there any more questions?
No?
Good.
Complaints?
Thank you so much.
Stop another bank doing that.
Next.
Is there many other banks in Ethiopia?